And through the magic of forgetting to turn the camera on anytime I was working on this over the last couple weeks, we are now magically at this point here where the completed walls have all been put in place. I've got the roofing on. I've actually got the tar paper on this roof. Next steps are to do the tar paper on all the remaining roofs, and then the actual base. This kit does not sit here on the ground like this. It actually has, you can see here, put that here, you can see that there's actually a foundation there that I have to, hopefully you can see that, I have to build. So we'll start working on getting the rest of the tar paper on today. Then we can move on to the final piece, which is building that base, and then from there move on to the final piece, which is to then, I've got the dust handler and the fill pipe, and then I've got all of these to paint, all the details that came with it, so a bunch of painting work that needs to be done. So let me pause the camera, get myself set up here to start working, and then we'll be back. Okay, so to do the main roof, we use these two pieces of black construction paper. First thing I got to do is I have to cut these into 9/16 inch wide strips. So another problem that I have, besides just forgetting to turn the camera on or thinking I'm just going to do something really quickly and it's not worth bothering to film, and then it turns into a much longer session and then I've missed it, is I have this terrible tendency to have too many projects going at once. So in the interim, since I posted the last video on this, I was given a Maryland and Pennsylvania CF7, an Athearn CF7. I don't have it here close by to show you, from one of my friends at the Model Railroad Club, because he had two of them, and so he gifted me that. And so while I was at the RPM in Valley Forge a couple weeks ago, I picked up the decoder for it. And so I've been working on doing the decoder install and documenting that through pictures, primarily, not video, but pictures showing the work, because I'm going to use that as part of my electrical AP submission for the NMRA AP program. So I was working on that. I've also been working on changing the track on the layout in Baltimore to give myself a passenger car storage track to make operations a little more efficient. I started thinking that maybe I could put in a track right there at the station for storing those cars, and so I've been looking at that, playing around with that, both in AnyRail, which is where my layout is, design is kept. So I was looking at it there. I've got, if you were to look over there at the layout, I've got a switch just laying there that I'm going to cut into the track work. Continuing to give some thought to that before I actually do any of that cutting it in. I want to make sure that that's really what I want to do. Make sure there's not a better option or placement for that. So working on that. I did some 3D printing for my buddy who's working on his layout, and he wants to have recessed push buttons for operating his tortoise switch machines. And so he designed a recessed cup that he'd drill into the fascia or the framework of the layout and then put that in. So he's done a couple of designs of that. So I did a couple of prints on that. So lots of different things going on, and this is my problem. I always have too many different things going on, and I cannot ever seem to just focus on one thing until it gets done. So this leads to my incredibly poor content production in terms of quantity. Quality, well, certainly not up to the standards of some of the really great channels out there. But then, hey, this is just me screwing around and recording it for other people to have a laugh at the stupid stuff I do. I find you don't need a lot of glue. In fact, you don't want to have too much glue for gluing on these pieces. Now for this one, we have to cut it. So I'm going to cut it, I think, right here and right there. And I need to cut it a distance to about, I'll try right there. Okay, let me finish this up and then I'll be back. Alright, now we're putting on the final piece for the main roof. Now we'll let that dry and then we'll trim it all off and we can move on to doing the office roof here, which I think I'll do that next, and then finally the drive-through and the loading dock roofs. And here we are with all of the roof tar paper installed and a little bit of weathering applied. Weathering looks a lot more harsh on the camera than it does in real life, but I think it looks pretty good from an actual viewing perspective. So main structure part is done. Okay, so with this done, then we'll get started on the base or foundation this part of it sits on. So let me get set up for that and we'll be back. I don't know how well it's showing up in the video here, but underneath the main structure here, which we've already put together, there is the foundation or the base. So you can see here, these 4 pieces I've already done. I still need to take and glue on these trim pieces to the rest of these. So I will go ahead and get started with that, continue working on that. And once we get all of the trim installed, we'll be able to assemble the base, and then once you have the base assembled, we will paint and weather the floor, get the floor installed, and then the main building will sit on top. So let's get to it. Okay, so the wheels of progress have continued to turn with the camera off. You can see here I've gotten all of the almost all of the sidewalls put in place. I've got the ramp here. I got the bracing glued on. This is going to go here. I need to obviously stain, weather it, and then sand it down on each end to fit against the ground and against the wall properly. Here, I don't know if you can see this on camera, started building the stairs. Gotta love blue tack to hold stuff down while I was gluing the stair treads in, so I've got that in progress. Next step will be to glue the main structure on top of the floor, and then we will be getting close to just the final details, which will include the ramp, the stairs. There are 3 wires that will support the roof. I'm thinking about possibly trying to add some lighting underneath here. just to make it a little more interesting. So we're continuing to make progress, again, mostly when the camera is off. I run down here whenever I get a chance, glue something together, and let it dry. So we will continue to work on this, and probably the next time I come back we will pretty much have her wrapped up. So I've managed to get the main structure completed. You can see I've got the foundation wall installed. I've got the support wires for the overhang roof installed. So the building is now basically completed. Sorry about the poor lighting here. I did make one horrifying realization, and that is I forgot to put window glazing in any windows other than the window here at the office and the door. So all the other windows are empty, and of course because it has a solid floor, I've got no real option for dealing with that. So that's just something I'm going to have to live with. Or I may try to go ahead and use some of this Deluxe Materials glue and glaze, which you can use to form windows. So I may give that a go and see how that comes out, just because it will drive me a bit crazy that I have no glazing in these windows. We'll see what we do. Other than that, the last things that I need to do will be to add the ramp over here on this side, and then on this side I've assembled the stairs, and so they are going to go right here like that. And then I have all those detail castings that I need to paint and put around, as well as add some people, and then we'll be ready to install it on the layout. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this series. We're going to call this done and dusted for now. Maybe in a future video I will show the fully completed structure, all the details in place with scenery on the layout. But thanks for following along in this series. If you like the content, please be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't, and I will see you down the rails.